Hey everybody, and welcome to what is a bit of a different episode. I may end up taking this down. After I found this stuff, I tried contacting the developer of the game. It was several developers, but it looks like now it's just one, and they don't have any email on the website anymore. So I sent him a couple of different sources, like through the Cat Goes Fishing Twitter, which he's following me, so that was a direct message, and then to his Twitter. Haven't heard anything. That was several weeks ago, so I'm gonna make this and take it down if he asks me to. If you've looked at my channel, you've probably noticed that I've been putting out how-to videos recently on all the different Cat Goes Fishing fish. Most of these are obviously more of a joke than anything, like cuttlefish, you throw the line in, pull it out. But because so many of these are so short and quick and easy to do, I've actually, at the beginning at least, it was taking me longer to create thumbnails than actually record, edit, and do everything else for the videos, because I was going into the video, finding a spot where the fish looked good, cut the fish out, tried to clean it up nicely, and this usually took quite a bit of time and also had pretty poor results. So I ended up going into the game files and actually pulling the sprite maps out, and while I was looking at these sprite maps, I found some sprites that were a bit unfamiliar. One of the two sprites that I haven't seen implemented in the game yet is significantly more exciting of a find than the other one, so I'll start off with that one. It's this guy here. First, I think I should talk about where it's going to be implemented, like how deep, whereabouts in the map. I think that there's a few things that point to it being a deep fish. First and most chiefly, as you've probably noticed, the coloration, it has no pigment whatsoever, so that in itself, it could just be the sprite being made waiting for a color palette to be added onto it. But if it's not, that could be completely gray due to being completely deprived of light, so possibly just in the caverns area. Likely, I think, in a cave, kind of like the lemonfish are. Another pretty big indicator to them being deep down are the eyes. If you look, the pupil is absolutely massive, seemingly to allow more light in those deep, low light areas. The third and final reason that I think that they are located deep on the map is their forehead, that melon-looking thing. In real life, to my knowledge, the only creatures that have that sort of melon are toothed whales like dolphins and belugas, but it's generally thought that it is used to help with echolocation and focusing the sound waves. So if they live deep down, echolocation could be extremely important to them doing what they do. Now, this might actually really just be a design choice by the graphic designers designing it. It might not actually have any fauna function as a melon would. It could just be, hey, it looks funny, kind of like the bagoo. It's got a weird lump on its head, but I don't think it uses echolocation. Besides physical location on the map, these traits might also be a good indicator to some of their behaviors. For instance, what do they eat? Are they just some of the lazy fish that just hang around? Do they go after other fish? The eyes and melon being tied to echolocation, in my argument, might indicate that they are hunters that chase after fish, similar to bats, excellent eyesight in most cases, and they use their echolocation to hunt and find the small fish swimming around, darting around. Another bit of supporting evidence that might suggest that they are hunters is their body. If you look carefully, you can see that they have a fairly streamlined body, and all their fins seem to be pointing back at fairly sharp angles. Additionally, they have a pretty strong tail. These factors make me think that this is a fish that's designed for quick bursts of speed, potentially to catch up to smaller prey and eat them. it may be possible that they will be hiding in little nooks and crannies, waiting to tackle unsuspecting fish that are passing by, similar to, what are they? I don't know, blind scorpion fish, I suppose. However, the mouth is a pretty important part of an animal being able to eat. I don't know if you know about that. It's a pretty closely held secret, but its mouth doesn't really scream predator to me. When I first saw its mouth, I immediately thought bottom feeder, kind of like a snail or a slug. There are some fish with similar mouths that just scrape along the floor, just scraping up the algae and other plant life growing on the rocks and in the sand. My next thought is that it could potentially be some sort of parasitic animal, like a leech. I'm not sure if lampreys are like that or not, but they have the mouth parts to look like they are, where they'll just latch on, cut through the skin or scales, and just suck out the life fluids of the fish they're attached to, or other creature, in case of leeches and people and things like that. But this does then pose the question of how big are these things? In the sprite map that I found this in, it's grouped with other large fish, and it looks to be about the same size as this. While they could potentially resize it in-game, that doesn't appear to be the case or have been the case for most of the fish. While many parts of these sprite maps have medium fish grouped with small fish, I believe that's because they have about the same height, and the medium fish generally are about 2 times longer than the small fish, so it would make sense that they would be able to easily be patchwork together. Now, if it does turn out being a large fish, it would make obvious sense that it could hunt other fish, or it could be like whales swimming around, eating up plankton or krill in its gaping, weird-looking mouth. It could even be a bottom feeder, but how could it really be a parasitic fish? Imagine a little cuttlefish with a cowfish stuck to its side, just sucking out its life. Doesn't seem like it'd make much sense. But when you get down into the depths, the dark areas, some of the darkest spots, there is one fish that it could latch onto, that being the cave shark. I believe that this could co-reside with the cave shark in that little cave down there. Whether it does end up leeching onto it and being a parasite, or just swim around with it, eating its droppings and whatnot, who's to say? But if it does latch onto it, you could have an interesting mechanic of getting it up, even though the cave shark is kind of a pain to get up anyways. Cave shark being the largest fish, it wouldn't be too big of a stretch to have one of these fish latch onto it to use as a host. And furthermore, the easiest way by far to catch a cave shark is to stack several bombs onto your hook before casting it down. And then when the cave shark comes up and starts to fight going towards the ground, you detonate one of the bombs. Now, if one of these guys were to latch on to the cave shark, it might come up with it for a certain distance, and then when you detonate a bomb with it hooked, it could potentially stun it like it does with the cave shark, making it let go and just stay in that general area until you go back down to catch it. Maybe it'll even be worth more than the cave shark. Imagine that. Whoa. Speaking of strange little weird leech things, that brings me to the second sprite that I've found that I don't believe has been implemented into the actual game yet. Look at this weird little thing. I mean, it might not even actually be a fish. It could just be some item that you get, maybe some sort of bait for potentially the weird thing that we just finished talking about. Another possibility is that it could be part of a larger fish or a larger item, kind of like the way that the boat is actually, well, all the boats, I think, the larger boats at least, are split up into several sprites that they then stack on top of each other. Or in the case of things like the Chompy, where it has some sort of active animation, the body of the Chompy is one sprite and the jaw is another. So that could be another potential, which is also kind of supported by the fact that the top of this weird little sprite, as you can see, it's a clean cut. That's right at the top of the sprite, so that may be where it connects to the larger part of it. While the possibility of it being a small part of a larger fish still holds strong, I don't believe that it's something other than a fish. It could be a bait still, but that big red circle really screams weird eye to me. Now, as was the case with the other fish I talked about, the location in the sprite map might betray some bits of information for this one. It is located with 4 other small fish heads, as in when you catch a small fish and then medium or larger fish come up and take a bite out of it, and all you have is the face remaining. It is with the pennyfin, the swooper, skitter, and cuttlefish faces, but all of those have a sort of smooth back to them, making it pretty obvious that they are not the complete sprite of the original fish. Meanwhile, this thing seems to remain symmetrical and has some interesting details that don't look like they could possibly be something that had a bite taken out of it. I don't know about you, but when I first looked at this thing, I immediately thought something vampiric. Now that then led me along the route of being a leech-like thing that I talked about before. The initial comparison that I had made in my head was either like a tick, a water tick, or the bleeders from Subnautica. They look quite a bit different, but for some reason it made me think of it. You know, just those things that come swimming, I think they're generally around the Aurora wrecks. They come in and just bite onto your arm and you gotta get rid of them. But after examining them more, I started having another idea. See those dark flap-looking things on the sides of them? I think those might actually be flaps of skin. Kind of like the skin in between the tentacles of the vampire squid, which, as I said, I think this thing looks pretty vampiric. Pale white, red, big old red eye. Another thing that could potentially link it to being a vampire squid is its size. This thing is tiny, about half the size of a normal small fish sprite, and the real-life vampire squid is less than a foot when fully grown. Foot long, not like foot wide or anything. It's about foot long, probably about that big around, but in reality they are a brownish color with a dark, if not black, eye. However, as is the case with many of these fish in this game, there may have been several artistic liberties taken to make it look more like the combination of reality and fantasy. In this case being a vampire squid that looks more vampiric. Pasty white, blood red eyes, who knows. Of course, this is all just speculation. I'm not a developer. The developer didn't even respond to me asking if I could put this video out. They may even end up being dropped before being implemented, but as of right now, they are in the actual released game files, along with several other locations for sprites that looks like he may have replaced with just random bits of text or other things, potentially to prevent people from peeking into the game files and seeing things that he's going to update or was planning on updating and putting into the game before he actually did. And again, that's why I wanted permission from him, because he might not want this stuff getting out. Who knows, he may have even just put these two things into the game files to throw off people who peeked and wanted to spoil it for everyone like me. But as I said, if he does contact me asking me, I will immediately take it down, or at least set it to private until an update comes out showing them. But with the number of locations in these sprite maps that look like they should have something else but only have weird snippets of text, what could potentially be some code or just error messages that he pasted in, it looks like there are quite a few new sprites that we haven't seen yet that may be coming out soon. So it looks like this game still has a while to go before the developers decide to drop it. with all that being said, I think I've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to in regards to these sprites. I am also playing ukulele, which I am having quite a bit of fun, despite how horrible of an experience the launch was, for PC people at least. But I do think that for that game, I am doing a pretty good job with commentary, so check it out if you want. Otherwise, I guess goodbye forever. But if you do decide to watch, whether it's ukulele or whatever else, I'll call it this there, and thank you all so very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next episode of whatever it is you decide to watch them in. Goodbye!